the globe. All right. And I would start by maybe introducing ourselves, and maybe we can take the order of the poster. So Noon, can you please just briefly introduce yourself, tell us where you're from or where you're currently based, and then we can start.
السلام عليكم. مبسوطة إني معكم الليلة. My name is Noon Salah ad-Din, Sudanese, bred and born. Been in the UK for the last 6 years. Currently, I'm a pediatric registrar in Aberdeen, and a spoken word artist as well in Aberdeen, with some artworks exhibited in the Aberdeen Art Gallery. Goes around activism and with the Sudanese revolution being on its heart. I'm also a master's student in University of Edinburgh. My subject is global health and infectious disease. And my studies are based around Sudan as well, and lower middle income countries. Lovely being amongst you tonight.
Thank you, Noon. Let's continue with Lina. Lina Kamal, I think you're the next on the poster. Are you there with us? Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lina. I'm 18 years old. I plan on going to school, to college to study medicine, specifically oncology, and I want to go into women's health, so like gynecologic, breast cancers, things like that. I've actually participated in one of these, a couple of these actually, with my cousin Wajida. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. I play volleyball. I'm in a couple business clubs at my school. Even though I'm not going into business, that's just something I enjoy learning about a little bit. And I'm excited to be here, and thank you. So yeah.
Thank you, Lina. And then Wajida, you're next. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mihira. Assalamu alaikum. Ismi Wajida. Nice to meet you guys and be here with you all. I am based in Virginia, United States. I will mix between Arabic and English. عشان العربي تعبان شوية لكن we'll make it through. I'm really excited and flattered and honored to be speaking on behalf of some Sudanese youth. I'm not going to list out my resume, but I work in the tech industry and surprisingly majored in literature, so 2 different studies. That's about it. Thank you, Mihira.
Thank you, Wajida. First of all, I mean, I didn't say that in the beginning, but we agreed on having this all in English, right? So yeah, no language mixing or code switching necessary. Thank you, Wajida. Asma, you're next. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Asma Haidar Al-Khair. I am currently living in Montreal. Moved here about a couple of years ago to start my master's. So I'm currently just finishing up my master's of science in bioresource engineering here at McGill. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for having us here and yeah.
Thank you, Asma. We have Lina Badari next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lina. I'm really happy to be here with all of you guys. So I'm based in Toronto, Canada, and I'm currently studying at the University of Toronto here, and I study international relations and peace and conflict and justice with a minor in African studies. And so I'm in my last year, so I'll be graduating this year. So yeah, I'm really excited to speak to you all and to be here today.
Thank you, Lina. That sounds very exciting. So actually, I will be the next on the poster, but I will let Yusuf introduce himself first. So please go ahead, Yusuf. Nice to have you.
Hi everybody. Yusuf Imam Abdurrahman. Very happy to be here with all of you. So I'm born and raised in France, and a lawyer in Paris, in bank and finance, and energy and infrastructure sectors.
Okay, thank you, Yusuf. So, and then at last, it's me. I'm Mihera. I'm 24 years old. I'm a teacher trainee, also in my last year, and I study English and political science. And yeah, I'm also born and raised in Berlin, Germany. To everyone joining us, it would be nice if you please mute yourself. Yes, thank you so much. And then first of all, also thank you to Lena who sent the questions into our chat group that we prepared. I think we can start with the first one. And I don't think we should have a specific order. I would say everyone who has to say something on the topic go forward. Okay, unfortunately, I cannot unmute people. Please, everyone who joins, unmute yourself. Don't unmute yourself. Yes, all right. So the first question we have is, what are the current challenges associated with the democratic transition? Does someone of you want to start? Otherwise, I'll give my opinion. Maybe Lena, you can start since you came up with that question, if you want, or I see Noon also unmuted herself. Maybe I was too fast now, sorry.
I'll let someone go first. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say first.
All right, Noon, do you want to go or?
Yeah, I can chip in. Going through that question, I think my top, it will be the economic challenge, because the economic challenge will be at the heart of everything. I'll talk about the economic challenge, and then from my studies, the health challenges as well, which also will be related to the economic challenges. The transitional government has inherited the economic burden of the previous regime, which is has done lots of damage to, like, economically and on other sectors as well. Just before the Sudanese uprising, like from the period of October to December 2018, 5.67 million people were estimated to be either in food crisis or food emergency. And that would be due to the effect of the economic crisis that had led to the devaluation of the Sudanese pound, and also the high inflation rates and increasing the food and non-food commodities. The uprising has happened, the transitional government came in, and then issues like the cholera, floods, and COVID-19, and everything has just heightened and worsened the economic situation for Sudan. Not to forget about the sanctions that has been placed upon Sudan as well. Like, to me, if the way to go forward would definitely be, how are we going to sort of find a solution to this? Like, you know, there has to be some sort of realistic goals. Like, this government the transitional government came into this, and I think the entire nation, I would say, didn't know about the figures. Where are we in exactly in terms of food insecurity? How many person is hungry? And, you know, there hasn't been sort of any clear plans or transparency with the sort of entire nation. Well, I'm sure they've been working very hard. And for me to be reading these figures while doing my master's, being as a person who's going to be placed in the government as sort of Minister of, you know, Finance, or how are you going to get yourself out of this sort of what do you call it, warta? I cannot translate warta. So they needed to be some sort of realistic goals and transparency. And for you to get out of here, I think international sort of other governments were needed to weigh in, which was what the, you know, Dr. Hamidok has been trying to do, is just outlift those sanctions. So realistically, what should happen? to get us out of this. So I think it's economic is one of the major challenges. I'll let you speak about it from your point of view as well. On the health sector, which is also, we'll go back to economic. Sudan has one of the highest child and infant mortality in the entire region of the low and middle countries and in the world. Our current infant mortality rate, that was also below before 2060 per 1,000 live births, and under mortality is high as well. So communicable diseases are high by 30%. The burden of disease in Sudan is affected by poverty, which is complicated by geographic, the armed conflict, the economic crisis as well. What needed to be done in that term is we don't have a stable universal health system. Or, this should be in everything, I think, like the health system, the economic system, what we don't have. We need some sort of true statistics and true figures for us to know where are we standing. This is just the only examples where I come from and I can speak about, like we don't have a stable universal health system. We don't have a demographic health survey since 2014. That will let us know how opening up about monitoring and evaluation to see where are we standing with the rest of the world. I know, so it would be definitely the economic challenge, number one, that is going to be related to the rest of the factors as well, whether health, whether education. And I'll stop here because I think I can go on and go on. I hope my points had made some sort of sense.
Definitely, thank you, Yanoon. Does someone directly answer to that or bring up a new point? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I would also like to answer that question. So first off, I would like to start off by saying that I'm in no way, shape, or form a professional or a political analyst, and I don't think it's my place to critique what the people of Sudan should be doing right now, especially with regards to the movement as being, part of the diaspora and just being privileged enough to not have to deal with actually what's going on the ground. But having said that, I think that the current challenges associated with the democratic transition is the fact that this system is very deeply rooted. It's been going on for more than 30 years. And so it will be very hard to kind of get past through this this political system here. And so I think the way forward it would be that, some of the challenges would be is that we need a strong unified leadership. And that is the only way forward. And I see now, especially with the emergence of the neighborhood resistance committees, that way forward is kind of looking a little bit more clear, because they've been doing such a beautiful job recently, especially with raising awareness and all these awareness campaigns and organizing demonstrations and using all of the tools of like peaceful resistance available to them. And so I've seen recently the awareness campaign of Asafia Resistance Committee. And so they've kind of come up with the a type of governance or a movement sorry, I read this in Arabic, so it's very hard for me to kind of translate it into English, but I'll try my best. So it was, in Arabic, it was al-Bina al-Qaidi, or I guess in English, it roughly translates to the grassroots organizing. So basically they're organizing kind of a system that starts from the bottom up. So it starts from the individual level, and then it goes into the neighborhood level, and then the city level, and then state level, and so on until it goes to the top. And I think that system would show a lot of success when it does, let's not say if, when it does go forward, because it really does voice the concern and the concerns and the demands of the individual. rather than from the past couple of years, what we had is a top-down system where we had professional organizations or associations that were chosen, and they chose people that represent these areas. And so sometimes politics would get involved, and I think that kind of fueled into the political divide between the people and the professional groups. So having a strong unified leadership in terms of grassroots organizing from the bottom up is really important, and I think we have to support the neighborhood resistance committees to with this movement, and especially with raising awareness and yeah, with their campaigns basically. And so now it's spread to other neighborhood committees, and they've also started these neighborhood or these awareness campaigns as well. And so I think that is definitely the way forward.
Yeah, that definitely sounds very beautiful. And you said something very important in the beginning, that like, you know, we're not the ones to tell people in Sudan what to do and what has been going wrong in the last few years. So I think, first of all, thank you for just bringing that up, Asma. And then also, I just wanted to re-emphasize it. Does somebody want to add to that specific point, or do we have a new point? Because I could say also something, but it's not that related to the grassroots structure and or way of organizing or health or economic things, aspects. So Yusuf, you just unmuted yourself. You want to add to that? Yes. Or one of these points, please go ahead.
Yes, I just want to jump in. Yes, as what it have been said, the current Sudanese situation showed us how it is very, very difficult to proceed and complete a democratic transition after 30 years of authoritarian and military regime. And such Sudanese long experience under al-Bashir regime has, in a certain manner, permitted military and paramilitary forces to acquire a significant structural grip over almost all the state's apparatus. So, and I think that it's one of the, it seems that it is one of the major challenge. Now it's how we can deal with these military forces, how if it is possible to deal with it. And from this recent experience, it is clear that any coalition with military forces is unbalanced and unsecure, and the military takeover demonstrates perfectly this balance of power. From what I heard from the protests, like Sudanese do not want any more military forces in the political system. I think that's one of the main points that we do not want to come back to something we have experienced for 30 years, and as Noon and Asma said, destroyed totally the economic system. But what I think is very beautiful, so Hamdok tried to in a macroeconomic way to release some debts all around the world, in France, Germany, etc. But what is very hard is the gap between the macroeconomic and the micro. So from what I heard from my family, etc., it's very hard to live in Sudan. The prices are going very high. A lot of revenues, etc. But still, despite this economic situation, I think that in one voice, they say that we do not want military forces in a political system again. So yes, just want to break that thing about the main problem of the military forces, and also the paramilitary forces in Sudan with Hemeti, etc.
Yusuf, yes, now you mentioned something I also wanted to jump on, so I might go ahead now. I think, I mean, I agree with everything you just said about the military, that this is the main thing. We somehow, I mean, we as all of the Sudanese youth and also in the diaspora and like, you know, everyone who sees themselves as an ally, I think that's the #1 goal. And my point was related to the international community, which we, I think, have the privilege to address better than people right now in Sudan. I mean, we never know when will be another or the next internet, you know, shutdown, whatever. I feel like this is our job, or I see this as my task now, addressing the German government somehow, because I mean, I also don't want to criticize everyone and saying, yes, they gave us so much money, as Yusuf just mentioned, and relieved all our debts and everything, but they're still part of the problem with the military, because they have been the ones pressuring on that power sharing deal back in 2019. And I remember I was devastated when the deal was signed, and I was also like so angry with my government, or the government presenting my interest, which is the German government. And I felt so helpless, because I also was like, well, you're part of the problem and it's also somehow your deal, you know? And I remember that the German foreign minister was the first one to visit Sudan, and, you know, he sent all these nice pictures, and he was calling it a success story and everything. And now, after the 25th of October, all he did was like condemning the coup, but not taking any consequence of, well, maybe this deal failed, and we should, like, you know, come up with new ways of negotiating power in Sudan, and not just like, you know, call everyone to go back to the agreement. So that was again another big disappointment I felt. And I feel like we have to stop seeing our governments or Western governments as allies of the Sudanese people, because I feel betrayed now that they really didn't take any consequences of it. And I'm pretty sure everything will continue as it was before. And I think that's unacceptable. And I think that's really it's a good momentum for us to, you know, step in now and pressure those governments like France, Germany, the UK, Canada, and the US. And there's also, we can talk about this later, but like there's this Canadian lobby firm, for example, or the European Union, you know, like financially and materially supporting the RSF basically for border protection and migration management on the Horn of Africa. These are all things that, I wouldn't say we have the power to stop, but we have, like, you know, at least in this state of our in our lives, where we're now in Western countries where we can pressure our governments without, you know, fearing consequences and so on, we should really make use of that privilege and use it. So maybe that's been a lot now. Lina and Wajida, you want to add to that, or just feel free also to address something completely different if you want.
Yeah, I'll add to your point as well, because it's a little bit connected. So because I come from like an IR background, I tend to look at things like in terms of like internationally, so how there's always that kind of context that's often overlooked. And in terms of Sudan, I feel like one of the biggest issues, or I could argue the biggest issue curtailing like the democratic transition, would be regional intervention in the country. And I feel like in terms of the Sudanese population and the Sudanese civil society is united. There's no issue in that. Like within internally, we've seen it now, and we've seen it with the resistance committees, we've seen it with the amount of people who have stayed united from 2019 up until now. So that's a non-issue. But what really I feel like is the issue is external intervention that has interests outside of that. So because the Sudanese people are in the country, their stakes are completely different than countries who don't really have to live with the consequences of a military dictatorship for the next 30 years. And so I feel as though because there's an international community, kind of like you said, Mihira, that like allows this, not even allows it, that condones it, then it makes it okay to kind of interfere in the affairs of a sovereign country. And usually that really disadvantages countries like Sudan and countries that are like, as you could say, like in the global south, or kind of who don't have that kind of economic prowess and the strong institutions to kind of be able to avoid that and to be able to prevent that kind of intervention. And I think also in terms of what you said, it's not a matter, like if the EU was genuinely supporting a democratic transition in Sudan, then they wouldn't fund the Khartoum process. And it's just as simple as that. There's not really like a 1-2 about it. So I feel like a lot of these countries, like you said, that do kind of have this outwardly effect, and that's how it is in international relations generally and within the political sphere, that do have an outward effect of what their interests are, but they also have, you could say, private interests of what really their interests are. And so even like, I'm in a country like Canada who sells weapons to Egypt and sells weapons to Saudi Arabia, who has billions of dollars of contracts with them. And these governments then directly fund a military regime in Sudan. So all these things are interconnected. And I think that it's always important that we keep that in mind, that nothing is truly, in the international community, nothing is truly divorced from each other. And the more that the military is also able to entrench itself into the economic resources of Sudan, the more that it's able to have companies that create and generate profit for them, the more that it's able to then, you could say, bargain on the international sphere on behalf of them. So when the military is thinking about its external interests, but when it's talking to other countries, it's not talking on behalf of the Sudanese people. It's basically, it's only talking on behalf of them, what benefits them. And so I feel like that's the difference between being in a dictatorship, and that's the difference between being in a democracy. And so when you're in a democracy and that option is no longer available to you, you're not able to kind of wield your resources for extra bargaining power, for extra political influence, for extra economic profit, then you're unlikely to let go of that system, if that makes sense. And that's generally what the military is doing now, because they've seen how it's worked out for them. They've seen how, you know, they've been able to control a country based on nothing. They don't have the qualifications. And they know that themselves. That's why they resort to coups. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we're currently facing, is how to kind of combat this regional interference that only seeks to like consolidate military power, because it also directly benefits them. And I feel like that's just a general theme as a whole. I know that you guys are talking a little bit about countries like Germany and even Canada, like giving money and giving aid, but also that money isn't free. It comes with stipulants, and it comes with kind of, you could say, like adjustments that the Sudanese government has to implement in order to receive that money. So I think it's also important that we keep these things in mind and consider how they might affect Sudan going forward.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for Wajida for raising the hand. That's a good way of communicating when you want to add something. So please go ahead, Wajida, and thank you, Lina, for your comment.
Thanks, Mihira. I think everyone has brought up a lot of great points. Lina, I love that you brought up the international side of things. It seems like you're very well versed in foreign policy. I'm not going to speak much about the foreign policy. I'm going to take it back a little bit, because I think you hit all of the major points. And I think as us being in diaspora, we are able to see how foreign policy plays a part in what's going on in Sudan, because we're in the players who are affecting what are the way forward with Sudan. But some transitional challenges, I think economics has been a big topic, but I am gonna go back and hit it again. But just in general, the transitional government's been going on for about 2 years now. But ever since the Ingilab, or the coup, it does feel like what the streets are saying, like it went to a waste, what has been going on in the 2 years. And I think that a lot of the reason why people feel like it's been going to a waste? Like, there's two big reasons. The first reason is members of the military and specifically the Bashir regime are still in office. Like, we did all of that for people to still represent us in a transitional government. Like, I can say one that was just appointed about like 2-3 days ago, General Ahmed Ibrahim, the chief of intelligence. He used to be the governor of North Kordofan state, appointed by Bashir. So he is a Bashir apologist, and he is basically coming, and it just feels like a Bashir regime. Like, that's what it feels like. So it feels like a waste. Another challenge with the transitional government, not just that there's such a big, heavy military presence, but there has been not much justice. And I think that's what the streets are very angry about. And what we mean by justice is like justice for the shuhada, obviously, that's like number one. Those who lost their lives fighting for what we want, where has the justice gone for them? Bashir was arrested based on foreign currency. And then everything that was set up to look into the June massacre was torn down after the coup. All of the transitional council members who were appointed for us trying to really move forward in certain constitutional articles were taken out. I think that Hamadok, I can't speak too much on what he represents and how I feel for him. I'll let the streets speak on that, and that's how they feel about it. I know that he just removed the chief of police. But again, this goes back to the foreign policy. That same chief of police is now representing Africa in Interpol right now. So it's like, what is going on? Like, the international community is not very supportive. The transitional government, where is it? The 2 years, where's the justice? Nowhere. Who's representing us? Bashir apologists. It just feels like another 30-year regime, but they're just playing with us and playing with our emotions and just trying to have us be quiet. I think another thing personally, because when we look at the streets, what do we see? We see all types of ages, all types of genders, women and children, and older, habobat, and whatever. You see so many different people, so many different voices. But then when I'm looking at the talks and discussions and council members, I don't see one youth at all. I don't see any representatives of the youth. And who's gonna build this country? I mean, of course, I think that the older generations can offer a lot, but at the same time, 30 years they've been suffering under a dictatorship, and the youth, with the help of the youth, they were able to topple it. And now we need those same youth who toppled it to be representatives in the government too. And I do not see youth representatives at all. It's the same old thing. So it's tiring for me, who's not even in Sudan, who's not directly influenced and affected by this. It's tiring, so I can't even imagine how it feels for everyone back home. But we need the youth to be in those positions, in those discussions, not just on the street. These resistance committees are so organized. They are laying out demands. Like, that's where I'm going to get my information of what's going on in Sudan, but they're not really represented in the government. So I think that's a big challenge in the transitional government. Last thing I want to say, because I've probably been talking for a long time, and I have a lot to say, so I'll just wait for everybody to talk and then add more. Another big issue with the transitional government is we're so hyper-focused, and I know everyone knows this, but we're so hyper-focused on Khartoum, Durman, Bahri, like the tri-state city area. And it's like, we're talking about economic development, healthcare, and whatnot based on that area. But it's like, we need to widen the view a lot more to include all of Sudan, especially like what's going on with the Jebel Moon massacre and the 10 villages that got destroyed. Like, that should be at the forefront of our fight right now. And just to go back to economics, this is really going to be my last point. It was signed in January, the budget, and I think it was a very important budget because that's after we got off of the American banned list. But 9% of the budget went to healthcare, and then 12.4% went to defense. And then 12.5% went to education, just 0.1 more than what went to defense. And that's just what they've written and put out. So honestly, I'm very distrustful of what comes out of the government. I can't even trust it. But 9% went to healthcare. And then where is that 9% really? Where is that really? It's going to be in the Khartoum area. So those outside of these cities are suffering way more. And that's where the voices that's whose voices we need to listen to on the way forward. Those are the representatives we should be having, not these military junta Bashir apologists who are currently in office. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Wajida, so much. Does somebody want to add, or Lina Kamal, you want to say something as well? Because you've been quiet now, so please, if you want, go ahead.
Thank you. I've just been taking it all in. I definitely agree with all of the points. That's why I've been quiet. Just picking back off of what Wajida had said. One, I do think one way that we can transition would be obviously serving justice, and two, holding the military accountable, because I don't think that we can have one without the other. So yeah, and I definitely agree about the youth voices. We definitely do need a representative. That would be very beneficial for us and for everyone in Sudan. So that's really all I have to say about that. So.
Thank you, Lina. Do we want to go on with the next question, or should we just like answer to each other's comments that we just had? Because I mean, I also, this thing of like, you know, Sudan is not just Khartoum resonated a lot with me, and I've been listening to a talk with, I'm sure you know him, Majdi Ejizuli, and he's been actually saying something that made me really think a lot about this whole, you know, city and periphery dichotomy, that basically, I mean, yes, we know Khartoum is a crowded, or the area is very crowded, there's a lot of people, but basically, I mean, where does the money come from? It comes from the periphery. I mean, there are people who are working, who are, I don't know, on the farms and in agriculture, or in, how do you call this, like in the mountains where you like, oh, what's the word? You know, from the mines and everything, where you extract this extractivist sector. And they, I mean, they are so neglected, although they really make, I mean, they are taking care of the resources we have. And the problem is just that also, I mean, and this is, I think, also what Yusuf, you've been trying to, or you were also mentioning, that like most of these companies are managed by the military and by the paramilitary, like by the militias. And I also feel like that's been a very big, you know, factor in why we cannot, for example, because I've been always thinking like, wait, there's so many resources and it's such a like rich country, so why doesn't it work, you know? But that's one of the things. And I don't know how you feel about this, you know, declared the RSF a terrorist organization. I think that's also one very important and very interesting thing we can talk about. But I feel like as long as they hold so much power in like also the economy, we will never get rid of them. And yeah, maybe there was also a question on Facebook. because I'm also following the chat. What role can Sudanese diaspora play for address Sudanese long-standing crisis and possible ways forward? Yeah, I think that's basically what we're trying to discuss now, all in all. But yeah, do you want to add something to that, or Yusuf, because you've been addressing it, I think you had this thing in mind somehow, right?
Yes, exactly. Just want to comment on what have been said. Justice for the Shahada. I don't know if you had the time to read.
You're unmuted now. You're unmuted now.
Excuse me. Yes,
Sorry.
excuse me. I just want to just comment one thing about justice for the Shahada. I don't know if you had some time to read the agreement signed between Hamdok and Burhan, but it is very concerning in various aspects, and notably this main question, which is totally avoided in the agreement. There is any provisions specifying any responsibility of the military forces during the protests, which is unacceptable. And also another thing, there is no date of when will take place the military handover to an elected civilian government. So this means that at the moment, the military could continue their rule indefinitely, which is also unacceptable. And for the indeed the major companies are controlled by military forces, and what had been planned initially, it was a transfer of the Sudanese military's commercial companies to civilian control, which is now in this agreement totally excluded, which is also unacceptable, and it's a power granted to military forces. And another and crucial issue is also the paramilitary forces. There was a deal to include all these military forces in the official Sudanese army, and now this question is also avoided. So it's a new thing to fragilize a democratic transition, a new way to give more power to military forces and to democracy.
Lina, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly add on to what Yusuf was talking about. And I think he brought up something really important that it's like important to highlight, is that without this kind of consolidation of the military forces, there can really be, it really looks bleak going forward, because in a country like Sudan, and that's why I think it's important to consider the historical legacy of specific countries, including their political conditions, is that in a country like Sudan, where violence is essentially power, and there is not a monopoly on violence by like one army, it becomes a way for people to kind of consolidate power, for people to kind of get themselves, you know, whatever that is, into the palace, into the certain political sphere, is to, by the way, have like armies, have paramilitary groups that they can then, you know, lease out to other countries for wars if they want to, you know, kind of be able to claim that they're protecting their people, to be able to claim that they're doing these, that they're having these militaries and building up their armies for, you know, their own secessionist desires, whatever the case may be. And so I think then it becomes it becomes not only a complicated situation, but it becomes a very volatile situation as well. Because then what it creates is essentially a powder keg, where there's all these different paramilitary groups and all these militia groups that really seemingly, although like, for example, like the Juba agreement, they'll sign that and they'll say that that will bring peace, and they'll say that, you know, they're on one page. But at the end of the day, the interests that they have at the end of the day are not really aligned, because they go directly against each other. And so that becomes the main issue of how do you then consolidate all these people who have different armies, who have different militia groups, who really, although they might say that they have similar interests, really don't. because at the end of the day, that's how they kind of like influence their power. And so if you have someone who, you're never going to have someone like, for example, Himiti step down and hand over his RSF. That's not going to happen, because then what that leaves him is, that leaves him in a weaker position than he was before. So it's all about strengthening positions in a country like Sudan. And so that's why I think it's important, like Yusuf said, to really highlight how this agreement, there's no discussion of that. There's no discussion of consolidating military forces. And that needs to be at the forefront of any type of agreement to move Sudan forward.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're moving into that direction of like what could, move Sudan forward? What could we do? Is there any suggestion, or do you have anything you wanna just get out here and tell us or let us know? Because I mean, I could start quickly. I was thinking that one thing that really annoyed me, and I cannot I don't know how it is or was in other countries, but if you listen to German media and if you talk or if you read newspaper articles, analysis, or documentaries, there's no mentioning of the resistance committees and no, I mean, in general, very few Sudanese voices. And I've been thinking, I mean, you don't have to be a journalist yourself, but I wouldn't I wouldn't mind or be afraid of actively asking newspapers which I think are good and which present something I'm fine with. I would always when there's an article, sometimes I write back and I'm like, hey, this is not okay, and you should really refocus on this and that. And usually good journalists are very interested in getting to know more about, and that ask I mean, they're not always sorry, but they're like, oh, I wasn't aware of. That's one thing they are not aware of. How would they be aware of if they're sitting somewhere in, I don't know, Europe or North America, and they don't have any Sudanese contacts and nobody to really ask. The only thing they get is like a Reuters or a DPA or whatever press release thing. And then I felt like this would be something very helpful, like centering resistance committees' voices. And yeah, that was just something I wanted to mention. And I'm very sure you all, we are all doing what we can and trying our best. So if you have any other strategies or any ideas, I would really appreciate getting to know them, because I feel also like we cannot, I mean, we can, but I don't feel like we could really continue protesting every weekend for another 2 years, because we're tired, our allies are tired, the media is tired. So they'd come to the first protest and cover it maybe like the local newspaper or I don't know, Deutsche Welle then in Germany. But we need to find more effective ways of protesting and also resisting somehow. So if you want to share something or if you have any idea, please go ahead.
Yeah, I love what you said. I think one thing, well, first of all, I do agree that we are tired, the media is tired, the allies are tired. But I think one thing that we can do that isn't necessarily too draining is amplify the voices that we do hear, and the people who are supporting the right side of history initially. I think it's very important that we amplify those voices, even if it's something as simple as just reposting a message or like a flyer, or even a protest that you see. Even if you are tired, there's always someone who might want to, go ahead and step in. But yeah, I really do agree with everything you said. And I like all the points you made. So.
Miher, I think you brought a really important point with regards to the media reporting certain information or certain events, but not really reporting the full picture, and especially the media outlets in around the region, so especially the Arabic ones. I feel like I get so frustrated and angry whenever I see news coming out from, like, let's say Al Jazeera or Al Arabiya or, you know, Al Hadath. Like, it sounds like it's propaganda. So it's really frustrating to see that they're not really stating the facts. They're not really, like you said, reporting anything about neighborhood resistance committees. And even in the West, it's very, they're, I guess, I don't want to say knowledge, but they're, knowledge of events of going on in Sudan is very limited. And so I think it is up to us as the diaspora to kind of amplify, like what Lena said, the voices of the people in Sudan, and to, no matter how draining it is, I mean, these people, they come out on the streets in millions, and, you know, that would only take 2 or 3 days for them to organize. And so I think writing to our media outlets here, you know, or even just, there's a lot of pre-written templates or that people can add on to, and so I don't think that it would take a lot of effort to even just, you know, constantly keep writing to these media outlets. I don't know about other cities, but here in Montreal, I know we've tried to get a couple of the channels or like the local media outlets here to kind of report on what's happening in Sudan, but we've been having a lot of trouble getting that or getting any response from them at all. So I think we have to keep constantly, you know, trying to amplify their voices and try to get across exactly what's happening on the ground and what the people in the neighborhood committees are actually trying to do. And a couple of years ago, I guess in the start of the uprising or the revolution, there was an issue of who would govern the country in the transitional state, or what would the government look like going forward. And so I think now, I truly believe that the resistance committees are the way forward. And I think that they would fill that gap of governance, because it's so organic. It's so, it really gets the voice of the individual across. And there's a lot of youth involved in the resistance committees. And so I know Ajida was speaking earlier about having youth representatives within the government. And so I think, you know, if we really do support the resistance committees in you know, in their work, that would be really the way forward. And so, especially through social media, I think that's a very powerful tool that has got the attention of a lot of, you know, people that way, and even writing to local representatives, like your MPs or yeah, about these things, and rallying and protesting, like it is kind of journey, especially right now in the cold. It's getting really cold and it's not sustainable, honestly, but we can do these you know, even speaking about it to your coworkers, to your colleagues, to your professors, just getting the information out there, getting people to know what's happening, because these military people, or these the people in power, currently in power, they love to you know, incite violence and you know, all in the dark. So if there's no eyes on them, sorry, if there's nobody's watching, they will do the worst. They will kill people, injure, whatever, hurt, rape. And so when we do kind of expose what is happening, they do kind of take a step back or try to appeal to the international community. And we've kind of seen that right now with what they do, with all the representatives they do send out to media outlets, and they're always saying that, oh, we're not hurting people, we're not doing this, we're not shooting at people, and we're not killing people. But it's very apparent on the streets, like, what is happening. And so when they feel, that's pretty much the reason why they cut off the internet, is because they don't want to know what's happening in the country. And so when we kind of raise, you know, people's voices, and we continuously talk about what's happening on the ground in Sudan, it makes it harder for them to keep killing and keep hurting people and keep, doing what they're doing. At the end of the day, they want more power. So they want the support of the international community. And so it's, very complicated, but I guess what we can say is to just kind of amplify the voice of the people on the ground.
Thank you, Asma, and I totally agree. Wajida, shortly before you have the floor, I would just read out a comment from the Zoom comments here by Sarah Abbas. The revolution is draining for everyone and we're all tired, but people on the ground and the resistance committees are not tired. I hope we can be as persistent as they are. And Sarah, you're absolutely right. And also I didn't intend to say like, we should stop caring and stop going out. I just think we can, find other ways as well. So thank you for your comment. And Wajida, maybe you can add to that.
Thank you. And I agree. I was going to look at the comment. I was going to make a comment on the comments, but yes, you're totally right, Sadra. I think persistence is so important. And if everyone back home is still continuing and fighting, I have to be here to support them. I'm really just going to add on because I agree with what everyone has said. What can us as like abroad do for Sudan? And I'm speaking from a place of privilege. I'm speaking from a place of ignorance as well. That's why I can't say what is a way forward for Sudan, because I'm not in Sudan. And I don't think it's totally fair for me to speak on behalf of them. But just to repeat kind of what everyone was saying, I think this is a generation of trends, and the way the world is going forward is all about trends. So getting as many eyes on something as possible is the way forward. And it is all about educating, especially non-Sudanese. Like for instance, trying to describe everything that's going on in Sudan, 30 plus years, even before 30 plus, like colonization, post-colonization, everything, it's a lot. And we were raised like learning all of that, but to educate someone on that is a bit hard. So I think amongst ourselves, kind of what Asma was saying, having quick talking points. For instance, we do advocacy here and lobbying, not that I really want American politics involved in Sudan, but it's just to have their eyes on it, it's going to put pressure. It is going to put pressure, even though I don't want their influence on it, it is going to put a lot more pressure. But kind of having a template. I know this one lady who is a very big advocate in the DC area. She sends a lot of WhatsApp messages, like repeatedly, kind of spamming, but it's just a template for you to send to your representatives, quick talking points. So I think getting those talking points prepared, like, oh, we toppled a dictator. Not that we're trying to erase all details, but it's like just to have more eyes on those people, on what's really going on right now, like the coup and whatnot. For instance, Asma did mention speaking to colleagues and coworkers, etc. And I remember the day after it happened, I came to work and I talked to every single person who said hi to me. I was like, do you know what's going on in Sudan? Do you know what's going on in my family? And just getting them like educated on that. I think that's such an important step of what we can do, Minhina. Sorry, I keep flipping to Arabic. I will stay English. But I think another important part is getting in touch with those on the ground, especially the resistance committees, since they are perfect representatives of what does the street wants, what do the people wants, what are their demands, getting in touch with them. And I think these type of discussions too are a way forward on how we can help, like all of us collectively speaking about what's going on, what our ideas are. And then we definitely need to include everybody back home too in these type of talks, just like having a random youth group or a representative of the Bahri Resistance Committee talk in one of these discussions is so important, because then they could tell us what they need from us. They can tell us how we can help. They can tell us what type of resources they need, instead of me like, this is the resource that they need. or they need to focus on their economy. And right now they're like, we're not even like, that's not where our head is at, or something like that. Like, I can't speak on behalf of them on what they need. I need them to tell me how I can help them. And I have so many, as everyone does, I have so many ideas of like, what is a way forward for Sudan? And we have this dream of what Sudan could be. Like, we wanted to build so many things for it. But that's our Western thought process coming in. Like right now, I'm like, oh, infrastructure, urban planning, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's American. Like, I'm speaking American policies right now. I'm talking about, we need to have stoplights and organized street signs and sewage for everybody, which is needed. But it's like, is that what the people need? Or is that what the demands of the people are? And I think that is something we miss out on all the time. We, instead of just having like a diaspora talk, which I love, I love being able to connect with all of you guys, to be able to speak on something we have in common, which is our homeland. But it's like, where are the people who are from Sudan? They're not in this talk right now. And the resistance committees are not represented right now. And they need to be represented for us to be like, okay, this is the way forward that they want. So this is how we can actually help them. This is the resources we can do. But in the meantime, social media, if you have a TikTok, make a quick TikTok, okay? Do you know how many people are on TikTok or Twitter or Instagram? Make a quick TikTok. It could end up on so many, it could go viral, just like the Blue for Sudan went viral, and so many eyes were on it. We had people discussing it, and people saw atrocities. People were noticing, oh my God, what is going on over here? Like, we need to support these people. And it helped the momentum. And then it died down. And it's like, no one's giving up. I see people on Twitter every single day talking about it. Even us right now, we're talking about it, trying to find a way forward. But the way forward is education, it's advocacy, even with the legislative community in your city, country, whatever, despite not wanting them involved, like having their eyes on it is important. Social media, taking advantage of that. And the most important ingredient is having voices of Sudan represented. I want to be able to spit points on what they want. And I can't say what their demands are. I don't know what resources they need. I don't know exactly how I can help them reach wherever they're trying to reach, because they're not here. So in the meantime, I'm just gonna keep putting social media pressure, eyes, advocacy in the meantime. That's all I got. Thank you.
That's such a good point, Wajida, and also like, of course, a critique to all of us, I think. I mean, not that, we did something wrong or whatever, but I think, yes, of course. I mean, the frame is the ASAS, like, Association of Sudanese Abroad in support of the uprising. So it could be the first step that we're here, and then I think there's nothing speaks against the next meeting with people from the actual resistance committees and from Sudan. And I mean, one thing is their spokespersons are announced, they're there, they have email contacts, and it's easy for everyone to get in touch with them, I think. I mean, as long as there's still the internet, and social media and things like that. So that's why I think we shouldn't we shouldn't now talk about like what does the youth need and what can we do or should we do and whatever, but maybe really try to focus on what we can do. And I love this point with the WhatsApp messages. I think that's really smart, and I've been also thinking about something like this, because in Germany we never did something like this, and I think that would be very helpful, because I've only sent like individual letters, and I know that actually like the ministries and MPs have to sit down and answer them. I mean, it's not really so like, I'm not satisfied with their answer, of course, but at least I had to spend 10-15 minutes on writing this answer. So if you spam them with like 100, 200, 300 letters, that would be amazing, I think. So, and also like petitions, for example, I mean, I would always be very careful with them, because as I already hinted, I think, I mean, sometimes the framing and the phrasing is a bit unlucky and not always, you know, what would be best, but that would be one way. And now Lina and Asma, you've raised your hand. Please go ahead. I don't know who's been first. I think Lina, you were the first, and then Asma. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just quickly go. So I just wanted to say that in terms of the resistance committees, and I feel like a lot of us are quite disheartened by the way that they haven't really been highlighted in mainstream media, and that like in these like big media companies, whatever it is, they don't really talk about the resistance committees. But I also think that's very intentional. And I feel like they avoid talking about the resistance committees specifically, because if they do, essentially that's giving power and recognition to grassroots organizing. So what that does is that in another country, that inspires people to be like, you know what, we can do this from the grassroots, like up. We don't need to like, you know, wait for like top down type of leadership or government. We can do this ourselves. And so I feel like that also is really intentional. And with state-owned media, especially now in like our globalized world, it's very, very intentional what they say and how they say it. And that's just like the reality of it now. There's always kind of a motive. There's always kind of a purpose behind what they choose to air, what they choose not to air. And so I feel like it's up to us, the Sudanese outside, to mobilize within ourselves to then create these connections where we can then amplify the voices of the people on the ground. Because as we saw, we went blue for Sudan in 2019 with no media help. There was no one was highlighting that until after it happened, and it became like a phenomenon basically. And so I feel like in 2019, it was such a unifying point for all of the Sudanese diaspora outside. And because it was such a clear-cut way of, you know, Omar al-Bashir is either in or out, it really was easy for everyone to kind of be in solidarity with that specific task. But now, because it's gotten a little bit more complicated, and now because there's more, you know, levels to it, and there's more like complexities that have emerged, I see it even now within like the Sudanese youth community specifically, like in like Canada, for example, that's become more difficult for them to kind of like keep up. It's become more difficult for them to keep that momentum as opposed to 2019. And so I feel like it's also, we need to emphasize that this situation is just as urgent or even more urgent than 2019. And so it needs the same amount of energy that we had then. And so whether that's like, I know like here we do a lot of like diaspora, like Sudanese youth like events, like just between us to like talk about issues and, you know, to kind of create a more personal connection. So then it's easier for someone to be really invested in the issue. And also I feel like when we create that type of link and that type of power, then we're able to go external of our community and challenge structures and, you know, get our voices heard and the voices of the resistance committees as well. Because at the end of the day, the resistance committees, their identities are still in danger. And so they're not really like, they're, as you guys can probably notice that now, they don't really go out and like have a face or a name to whoever's talking. It's really not a thing, because they still need to be protected at this like crucial point in time. Because like, as people say, like they're the last barricade of our revolution. So, you know, if they're kind of infiltrated, then it becomes a completely different issue. So I feel like to just amplify them, and like you guys all said, like really great like things that we can do. Get news outlets to come to your next protest, like email them or call them, like call your local, like, oh, Toronto, whatever, CBC, and be like, we're having a protest and this is what's going to happen. And you can talk to me, and or you can talk to this person, et cetera, et cetera. Email your representatives, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are supposed to represent you, and they're the ones who are voted in office because of you. So they have a responsibility to answer to you, and they have a responsibility to kind of field your demands. And so to be able to put that pressure, to make sure to let them know that you're watching. Those are all really like, it seems like futile things that are like, oh, but this is just not really that significant, but it is in the long term. And so I would say, yeah, to just mobilize within ourselves and then go outside further than that.
Asma, first of all, thank you, Lina. Asma, you want to just answer? And just one point, we have an invitation by the Sudan's Doctors for Human Rights to join. I just wanted to mention and also remind you guys to keep an eye on the chat if you want to add to something there. But now, Asma, please, yeah, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what else we can do in the diaspora. And it's, so we can look at the way our governments are dealing with the government of Sudan. So for example, or even companies. So for example, there's a company here in Canada, for those who don't know, Dickens and Madison, who is was contracted by the military in 2019 to polish their image and to provide military funds and equipment and training. And they're currently in talks to renew their contract. And so even on the day of the military coup on October 25th, they were in talks for advice and things of that sort. So these types of companies are allowed to work under the current Canadian law. So what we can do is try to not allow them to be working. And why is it legal? Why is it legal for a company to polish the image of a military coup? And why is there's nothing stopping them from finding funds and especially military equipment, and they actually had a direct hand in facilitating the deal between Libya, the militia and I think it was Khalifa Haftar in Libya and his militia to send over 1,000 soldiers from Sudan into Libya to fight in the Libyan war in return or in exchange for funds. So why is that company allowed to, mediate between, militias and allow them to become even more powerful? And this company in specific has worked with other military juntas in Myanmar. They've worked with Khalifa Haftar, who is a militia leader in Libya. They've worked with Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe. So they have a history of polishing these militia leaders. And so there's currently a campaign here in Canada that is trying to stop this company from being able to work being able to do these kinds of things. And so by changing the lobbying laws here in Canada, so that's another step that we can do is finding which companies the military is actually working with, and so trying to stop these companies from working with them.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. And I just remembered that there's also, this German company that I just saw it on Facebook. That's there's been a post of a German company working with the RSF also and providing them with, I'm not very sure, I don't know much about techniques, but chip cards and yeah, so there's still, actually we could all follow up on that now and ask these companies, and also yeah, some government instances of how can this be allowed, how can they cooperate, sell their product to militias like these. I think we can very soon come to an end. I would just also we all still have a lot of time. I just want to bring up another topic of international and internationalist solidarity, because Asma, you just mentioned this company, also the Canadian company, also supporting military juntas around the world in Myanmar and everything. And maybe that's only a thing in Berlin, but here are a lot of people who are very interested in the Sudanese revolution and who are very keen on learning about it, who come to our protests and our events and talks and everything. And most of them are from the region, they're Egyptians, Lebanese, Palestinians, or Moroccans, Algerians. And I feel I'm always a bit helpless because I can't really, tell them what to do and whatever, but they're always, and that's something I find so beautiful, is they're always telling us we learned so much from the Sudanese revolution, and we're so thankful for, you know, your resistance and everything. And I feel like this way of supporting each other in a very internationalist way of having the situation where, like, you know, there's these military regimes, these military and oppressive governments who you know, just try and terrorize your population. They have strategies, we have strategies, and you can exchange, and I think you can learn so much from each other. I mean, I learned a lot from you guys here, but I think also we have so much potential to reach out to more people around the globe, and, you know, to get connected with them. And also I've seen this picture of like protesters in Myanmar showing up, like banners with "We stand with the Sudanese revolution." And I think that was very, I mean, supporting. And I was here, I was like, wow, that's so beautiful. So I can imagine how people in Sudan on the ground must feel when they see pictures like these. And I think we have the power. We're all living in international cities with, like, you know, a lot of nationalities and people, and I guess also very political scenes and, you know, spaces. So I feel like that's really one power we also have, to keep up the solidarity and to build on these structures. Yeah, please, I mean, that was, I think, my last word I wanted to say, and I think we can all now have last few words, and then we're about I'm about to go to bed because it's late here. But yeah, please, before closing, I don't know, I mean, I don't have a specific question left now. I think we cleared everything we wanted to talk about, but if you have something, just bring it up, please. Whoever wants. Yusuf, you just unmuted yourself.
Yes,
so.
I just want to add something. As a lawyer and in cooperation with other lawyers specialized in human rights and several Sudanese associations, we are considering various legal actions to be taken. Nothing really concrete yet, but what will be very useful, and I don't know if you may help, is to reach to local Sudanese association in the world, Canada, Germany, etc., in order to first sort of gather a lot of informations and create something more effective when we will be able to file a case in local tribunals, but also in international criminal court. But we have a big need of communication. It's the main issue we have. Even to know lawyers Sudanese lawyers in each foreign country. So maybe it will be something good to say and to work on it.
There's a question from Khalil. I don't know. We didn't introduce you now, and I'm not sure. I mean, you know that you will be live streamed now on Facebook, right?
Excuse me again, what did you say?
You will be live streamed on Facebook now, so.
Okay, no, but never mind, it's fine. The only thing that I wanted to ask is because I got sent that link randomly on WhatsApp by a relative, and I'm located in Vienna, and I would love to join your future discussions, as it was very insightful and very informative, and I see y'all are very active and also very a thing I notice here in Vienna is a lot of people are not very even the Sudanese people, young people especially, are not very connected maybe to Sudan, you could say it in that way, or very connected to the material and everything which is going on, which a lot too, of course. But I wanted actually to ask how I can keep up with you, if there is any contact information, so I can join in the future and not get random links.
I think I would suggest you send a message to Some of us maybe with your phone number, like a private message, you don't have to put it in the chat here. And then we could add you to a WhatsApp group. And then for the next talk, yes, yes, we will add you to the WhatsApp group. So just pick someone and we'll take your number and add you. Thank you for joining us anyway. I mean, it's good that you got the link randomly, so that's good. Nice. To everyone else, so Asma, Lina, Wajida, Noon also, and Asalina Kamal, if you want to say something, you know, some closing words, that would be very nice now. I think it's the time.
Yeah, I just, sorry. No, you want to go?
This is me tipping. I was trying to put my daughter to bed, really. That's why I'm just putting the video now. No video. Like good points that have been raised earlier. And I just wanted to say that the attempts to transition from a dictatorship to democratic system goes through a series of ups and downs and, you know, successes and failures. So it's not a linear path. You know, it's يعني شجاعة كان from the transitional government with, you know, us in Sudan are not encouraged, our system doesn't encourage us to be, to go into politics. And I think we are all what we call now, we are sort of activists. This is a form of activism that we're doing now. So for us to go forward, you know, its persistence is the key. Do not underestimate the power of your voice. My granddad told me when I was 15, be a voice to the voiceless. And since then, I've been trying to figure out how to do that. So, you know, for me, I'm a poet and spoken word artist. I go into open mics. People didn't know about Sudan before I stood on that mic. I think Ustaza Leila Abul Ila, she's a Sudanese writer as well. But for me, be out on open mics and, you know, talking about Sudan and Nil, and then my poetry transformed into revolutionary poems with what's happening now. So, you know, the media, Twitter, even if you feel like people are just, it's just going to bother them, but, you know, just keep doing it. Persistence is the key. And I think we all have to transform from being activist into, you know, like to be more fa'ilin, which is like acting into this and active. So أيوة كل الحاجات اللي قلتها قبل الناس تشتغل فيها يعني, you know, send to your MPs. And so I don't think I can add anything. One point that you mentioned earlier, يا مهيرة, كان إنه الناس, you know, it's get tiring. It does get tiring. You know, people قاعدين في السودان, I'm here worried about, you know, brothers and families, and, you know, it's a different concept. Like, you know, أيام الثورة الأولى يعني, I'll be speaking to, without mentioning like family members, they say, oh, these people are just firing on us, and they'll just be chatting and you hear the bullets وقاعدين في القيادة وبنعمل. So قدرتهم على إنهم هم في قلب الواقع, it differs from us here with an anxiety, not sleeping, being worried and this and that. So يعني في دعم, there is a support for the people في Sudan, you know, like there is sort of brilliant psychiatrists, psychologists who are working with them. للناس اللي قاعدين في الخارج برضو, there is a support. And if anybody feels that, oh, this is actually a lot, I have trouble with sleeping doing this, if you'd like to contact me, I could point you across with people who have been confidentially working مع, you know, ناجين, say, أو متعايشين مع أحداث الثورة, was sexually being abused or physically being, you know, traumatized by it. So, you know, your mental health is something to be valued as well. إذا حسيت روحك, last week I felt it got a lot. I just stopped tweeting because I was tweeting like 100 tweets a day, just like get the message out there. You know, it gets tiring, you know, like we are not wired to look at violent videos and شوف ناس بتموت وتحصل. It's just, it cannot be tolerated sometimes. Take a break, you know, evaluate what's happening around you, and then you need to look after yourself as well, so you'll be able to be voice for those people there. You know, we are their voice لما يكون ما في internet, ما في حاجات, so you need to look after yourself as well. So inshallah, we'll keep doing what we're doing now. نشوف ناس من the resistance committee. The Sudanese revolution is the most amazing thing that's happened to the people in Sudan. You know, all of us, I would say, we've been having this something called Stockholm syndrome, which is, you know, like, or most of the people now, you'll be, when you lived under a dictatorship for so long, you're afraid to move away from your, you know, like captor. So, you know, I think we have to help the resistance committee as well in spreading the message. لأنه ما حتكون الحاجة centered only in خرطوم، حتكون الحاجات لقدام. So we have to work now من now لحد ما يحصل الانتخابات. What is the vision? We need to have a clear vision of how to help the resistance committee and how to mobilize the youth and the female as well to be an active participant in this. And it's me now. I'll go and finish the lullaby for my baby girl. So that was just a lot. I felt in just trying to get my point through. So really honored to be among brilliant youngsters, like I shouldn't call youngsters, but you know, the future I would say, you know, whether community اللي انتوا قاعدين فيه أو positively contributing to Sudan in the future إن شاء الله. ربنا يوفقكم كلكم. شكرا جزيلا.
Shukran Yanoon. Thank you so much also for the very valid reminder that our mental health and everyone's mental health really matters. So now, good night to your baby girl. Thank you for being here with us also. Yeah, now we still have some closing words, I think, and some minutes. So whoever wants to go next, please do, Lina.
Yeah, I just want to say something really quickly. First of all, yeah, that was a really great closing segment from Noon. But I just want to say that although like we as the youth and the youths particularly in Sudan is the future of this kind of revolution, is the future of Sudan itself, there's also the struggle for a democratic government is also a struggle that's been going on before we've even been born. So I think it's important to recognize that although we, the youth, have a lot of stakes involved, and this is the country that's going to be left for us, this is also a fight that our parents and our parents' generation has also been fighting for years. And so I feel like it's important to recognize the historical impact of Sudan as a country and how revolution is so deeply embedded into kind of its fabric. And to say that, and that is also to say, to kind of be, to end up on a positive note of we can do this because we're quite literally built for this. Like this is something that shapes our identity as Sudanese people. And so in that sense, to kind of just always keep that in mind, that this is something that's been going on before we've even like actualized our kind of demands and what kind of world we want for ourselves. And so to just keep on doing whatever we can to kind of keep that legacy moving forward.
Thank you, Lina. Asma, Wajida, Adelina, Yusuf, you wanna add something as well, or just say goodbye to everyone as you like.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you to the Association of the Sudanese Abroad for this. I'm sorry, I don't know the entire acronym, but to support the uprising, for inviting us and for hosting this event today. And hopefully we can have more in the future that would include people in Sudan as well, especially youth. So thank you.
I'll add something, why not? You guys made great closing points, so I'm not going to add too many points. I just wanted to say, like Asma, I'm really grateful and privileged and so happy that and honored that you guys asked me to speak. So thank you, Association of the Sudanese Abroad, in support of the uprising. Thank you for having me speak, and I hope to join you next time. And thank you to the co-host and co-panelists. It was great speaking with you all. You guys came up with amazing points. And I'm honored to share the stage with you guys, and I can't wait to discuss more on our little WhatsApp group. Thank you, Mehera, for hosting and delegating who's going to speak and when. So I appreciate it. Who else can I thank? Thank you to the family who's watching this. Thanks. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to the second one. And like Asma said, I hope those in Sudan can join us, and I hope we can speak more on what is a real way forward, because I have so many ideas, but I just didn't want to take too many chances on saying something that's not in their demands currently. So I would love to hear from the people of Sudan so we can discuss together and come up with, like Noon said, a real vision of what we are fighting for. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Lina Kamal, do you want to say something? Because I feel like you've been so quiet now. I mean, I know that, you know, everyone is a bit different, but before we close, maybe you want to say a few words. You don't have to.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for having me. I'm just taking it all in. I think we've all learned some important things today, or we're just reminded about maybe some things that weren't necessarily like in the front of our heads. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for hosting. Thank you, everybody that's watching. And thank you to you guys, the panelists.
Yes, I also have to thank everyone who joined. Also to everyone who's been following us on Facebook, I think. There were some amazing comments and very supportive. So also thank you to the Association of Sudanese Abroad in support of the uprising. I hope that was right. So I always say ASASU. For having us. Thank you for also, you know, setting up this Zoom. Thank you for everyone who's been speaking and participating. I really learned a lot. I appreciated everything you said, and I'm very happy that, you know, we're all somehow on the same page, and I'm very sure we can have a next meeting, we can have a next discussion, then, as everyone else has said, hopefully with people from Sudan. And yeah, whoever wants to keep in touch, I'm very optimistic who we will be. Khalil, you just have to send your phone number to someone here, and then we'll add you. So the speakers preferably, and not just some random person in the Zoom. I think that's it. We had some, more than 90 minutes, even more than we anticipated. And I'm sure we could go on and on and on. Now, Ajida, you want to say something, something very last?
Very last, I'm so sorry. I know I've spoken a lot during this webinar.
No, that was not, and I mean, that was not the
No. I get it, we're about to end. I just want to say one big thank you to Mama Salwa, because she's the one who put me in contact with the association and encouraged me to speak. So thank you, Mama Salwa. That's all.
Me too.
Okay, so thanks to our moms and dads and aunties and uncles who put us in touch. Also very grateful, of course, to just, you know, generations who also work with us and who actually want to listen to our voices. I don't think that's, you know, we can always take that for granted. So I'm very thankful for that. And I mean, just now, I think we can close the live on Facebook, and we can all just go through the comments here and have all a nice evening, or I guess day in the US now. So yeah, thank you for everyone who has joined. Have a good night, day, whatever. Take care, stay safe, and let's continue fighting for our revolution. Let's continue fighting for our people, and see you all very soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, good night.